honored to be speaking tonight on this trade. This is obviously a topic I'm very, very passionate about. It's something I've been doing for quite some time, and I'm known across the country as a note guy. So if you don't know who I am, it's your first time, Joe's like, I got an email about something about non-performing notes, and this guy's just talking. Who the heck is he? Well, I've been an active real estate investor since 2002, primarily focused on non-performing notes since 2007, 2008. That's what NPN stands for, non-performing note. I've been called the love connection or the Chuck Woolery of ugly paper by Investors Business Daily, the Wall Street Journal, Inc.com, and a few others out there. One of the things I've done is purchased, though, over the last 14 years, purchased over $1 billion in debt. That's B with a billion, 1 billion, okay? Now, some people, oh, you've made $1 billion. I didn't say I'm making $1 billion. I bought over $1 billion in debt in mortgages of what's owed on stuff. Been featured just about everywhere. I'm the host of the Note Close Show podcast, Note Night in America, Note Camp, and a few others out there. You may have heard me speaking a variety of other podcasts out there in real estate and entrepreneurship and business as well, too, for you. But the thing I'm most proud of, I've helped thousands of investors and homeowners out there keep people in their houses, helping investors get out of something, get out of a job they dislike, or really find a true path to profits as a note and distressed note investor out there. But if you'd like my slides, I'm glad to share my slides with you. All you've got to do is go to your phone, pull out your phone, type in the number 474747, and text the word notes to that. And I'll be glad to send you a link, send you an email with my PowerPoint tonight, because it's got a lot of great stuff in it tonight. We've got some case studies, got some deal flow, some stuff like that as well that you may want to take with you and watch at a later time. If you also do that, I'll be glad to send you a copy of my book, How to Buy Real Estate at 40% Off and How to Break into the Secret World of Note Investing. It's a 72-page book, and I will literally send you a physical copy. I'll send you the ebook copy too, but I'll send you a signed copy of my book as well if you want that. So text the word notes to 474747, and somebody on my team will reach out to you either later tonight, tomorrow, to get that information from you. But anyway, why are you here? Why are you here on a Wednesday night or whenever you're watching this? Why are you going to take an hour and a half out of your time? It's because of a couple of things, right? We're here to better ourselves. We're here as real estate investors, as entrepreneurships, really going after that American dream, right? To pursue liberty, happiness, right? The right that we have here in the States to be capitalists, to be able to be entrepreneurs and call our own shots, to live our own life. And many people are obviously investors for a variety of things. Maybe they don't like working in a regular 9 to 5. Or maybe you're doing this as a side hustle to help pay for your spouse, or pay for your retirement, or pay for your parents' retirement, pay for your kids' education, to have more fun, to travel, whatever it might be. We're all here for a variety of reasons. And so I want to share over the next hour probably. We'll probably be out of here right about 7:30 our time. But I want to share with you some stories and kind of how I see the market going and where I see the opportunity being. And I first want to share this with a simple case study, somebody that we've helped, and I want you to meet Sheila and William, okay? They are such a great couple. I've had the great opportunity to know them for over 7 years now. And I'll tell you a little bit about their backstory. When I met Sheila and William, they were not in a very good position. They bought a house, they'd raised their 3 daughters in a house in Illinois for over 18 years. But unfortunately, they were upside down in their mortgage, okay? And give you a bit of an idea what their house looked like. That's actually a picture of their house, okay? And they'd lived in this house for a while. They did like a lot of people. The value went up. They said, oh, this is an opportunity. Maybe we can cash in a little bit of equity in our house and pay off some bills. And that's exactly what they did. They took out a mortgage. They had a mortgage on their house. It was nearly paid off, but they pulled some capital, some equity out of their house, paid off some medical bills, started paying off some credit cards, stuff like that. And then the world went sideways on them. William had a heart attack, still survived, but was out of work for an extended period of time for over a year. And then the market started to drop on their house because of foreclosures taking place. Now, this goes back a few years, okay? And I came across Sheila and William when I came across their loan file in a portfolio I was buying. And when I talk about loans, I'm actually talking about buying the distressed mortgage. That's what I do. I buy first mortgages on residential commercial properties, either individual notes, or I will sometimes buy them in a pool or a bulk offering, anywhere from 5 to 500. And I got their information as part of a portfolio of 75 assets I was buying. And I was looking and doing due diligence. They didn't owe a lot on their house. $70,000 might be chump change in a lot of parts of the country, but it was a lot to them, especially when you're now a single income earning house. And William was the bread earner of the house, but now Sheila had to be that. They owed over $70,000. The house was maybe worth $35,000, $40,000 at the best. But they hadn't paid their mortgage in roughly about 3 years because they were trying to do a loan mod. They've been trying actually for 4 years to modify the loan. It's at a higher interest rate. It was a subprime mortgage back in there, or I guess you could say non-QM, non-prime mortgage these days. And they were really, really over a barrel. And when I came across their loan, I was looking at it, it's like, okay, what can we pay for this? Okay, it's not so bad. I said, and then I was looking at their loan file and I started seeing all these hardship letters. And when I originally got the file, it was PDF. It was one of the largest files as PDFs that I'd seen in a long time. I was like, oh, here it looks like somebody's trying to stay in their house. And she'd been trying, like I said, Sheila had been trying to do a loan mod for 4 years. Every year they'd be about to get ready to approve, and their loan would be sold to somebody else. And I was the fifth person that ended up buying their loan. And we paid $12,000 for their loan. They owed 35. So we paid about 33 cents on the dollar, basically 20 cents on the dollar of what was owed, the underlying balance for the most part. Payoff was 70, UPB was 60. UPB is unpaid principal balance. And their mortgage payment was like $453 a month. And some people think out there, well, $453, that's not a lot. That's pretty cheap compared to what I'm used to paying. And I would agree in a lot of cases it's cheap, but it was a lot for them at that point. And over that 4-year period, William had started to get his health back, was going back to work, but the underlying lenders weren't going to play ball or weren't going to really deal with them. Wanted to bring over a year to the table in payments, and they just didn't have that. So when I bought their note, I immediately, about a week and a half, 2 weeks after I purchased it, I gave them a phone call. And I got Sheila on the phone. I said, hi, Sheila, blank. I'm your new lender. I just want to give you a phone call. We purchased your loan just recently. And you could hear just the energy, the air go out of her. She's like, oh, again? I thought we were going to get the loan mod approved this time. And I said, I don't want you to be upset. Just hang on a second here. I'm here to help. Yes, we've bought your note. Yes, I've looked at your loan file. I've looked at your everything. And let's get this thing approved tonight. I know that you want to stay there. Let's get you approved right now. She's like, are you serious? I'm like, yes. I said, can you start making your existing $453 a month? Is William back? And she's like, yes, we can start paying it. We just can't come up with a full 3 years or 4 years of payments. Like, oh, no, that's fine. So $453 a month, you can start paying. She's like, yes. I said, could you bring $5,000 to the table? She's like, no, we can't do that. I'm like, what can you bring? She's like, well, I could bring 5 or 6 months to the table. We've got some money. We just got our tax return. I can bring $2,500 to the table now. It's like, okay. Could you pay an extra $200 a month on top of your $453? She's like, yeah, we could do that. I was like, okay, great. Let's do this. You pay your $453 a month. You bring $2,500 to the table. You go meet my attorney about an hour from you. Sign the documents, bring in a certified check, start paying on time, $453, pay that $200 extra on top of it. At the end of 12 months, this is what I'm going to do for you. At the end of 12 months, I'm going to reduce your interest rate from the 9.9% to 0%. Okay. I'm also we're going to reevaluate your loan balance and drop if we're going to reduce your loan amount to the amount that your property is actually worth. So if it appreciates a little bit in a year, we'll drop the balance to 40. But I'm going to make sure that every penny you pay goes towards the principal amount of the loan. Instead of you taking 33 years to pay off your mortgage, you're going to be paid off in just over 6. And you could hear her crying on the phone. She couldn't believe it, thought it was like, oh my God, this can't be real. I was like, yes, it is. Go meet my attorneys. I'll have all the documents and we'll get rock and rolling. And they showed up. They signed the documents. They brought the certified check for $2,500. William cried at the closing table, and they paid on that mortgage for 6 years and paid it off. They now outright own their house. They're raising their grandkids in the house. So they're one of their daughters, the other two have moved out. But it was really nice. About 6 months after we closed on this deal with them and had them start paying on time, I get a card in the mail for Christmas, and then it opened up, and they said, "Thank you so much for working with us. Our eldest daughter had her first grandchild, our first baby, and she decided to name it Carson after you." And so I don't have any kids of my own. I don't have any grandkids, definitely, but it's also nice to help people a lot and keep them at home. And that's really the main goal of what we do in note investing is we try to work with people. We try to keep them in their houses. Now, not everybody wants to be helped. Not everybody wants to work with us, and that's fine. We go the legal route and foreclose. And yes, I'm out to make money. I'm not a charity, but I do like working with people. If they're going to meet me halfway, I'm willing to work with them in a variety of ways. And you know what? I didn't have to rehab this property. I didn't have to go and fix it or anything like that. Sheila and William had pride of ownership in this house. They really wanted to stay, and that's what we like, is being able to make money, but also do some good along the way. So what am I going to cover over the next 45 minutes? I'll talk about how to find non-performing notes from banks and hedge funds. We'll talk about how to fund these deals with other people's money, because 95% of what we end up buying, we use other people's money to fund it. We'll talk about how to flip these notes and then a variety of different exit strategies that are available for it, because it's just not one strategy. There's a variety. I don't want to say it's a pick your own adventure kind of deal, but a lot of times, yeah, there's multiple strategies and you can still make money on a variety of them. Okay. We'll talk about how we focus on rehabbing the bar. Case study just like that. I think you guys see, we like to rehab the bar. I don't want to rehab the property. Been there, done that. Don't want to do that. Got the scars and the t-shirt to go along with it. But I'm glad to rehab the bar. And I think so many Americans out there that are behind their mortgage, it's not any fault of their own that they've been laid off or they're trying to go back to work. And we all know COVID was crazy and everything that was shut down. People need a little help, and they don't need a lot of help. They need a little bit of help to get back on track. We'll talk about how to build a blueprint for success without huge overhead costs, no direct mail costs. Where if you've got a cell phone and computer and internet, you can do this business from anywhere. I don't care if you're in Timbuktu or Kalamazoo or Homestead, Florida, or Austin, Texas, or San Diego, California, or Tel Aviv, Israel, or Barcelona. We have students all across the globe, not just the United States, investors all across the globe that are doing this business from anywhere. And most importantly, we'll show you how to create a win-win scenario for you, the banks, and the borrower. Okay. So I always like to ask this question when I'm speaking, whether it's at a RIA meeting or out at a conference: what does your business look like? And as a real estate investor, many of us, and even I was guilty of this, we're looking for that ugly property. We're looking for the ugliest property on the prettiest street, right? And this one, it's got a little bit of lean on it. Is a wholesaler would say, oh, that only needs like $5,000 in rehab costs, and it's perfectly, you may chuckle a little about that, but many people, that's what we're looking for: distressed property, looking for distressed assets. The idea that we wave our magic wand and it turns into something that looks like this, right? Well, I want you to think differently tonight. I don't want you to think as a wholesaler or a fix and flipper. I want you to think a little bit differently, like you're a bank, because a bank doesn't look at individual assets. I mean, yes, they do. They make loans, but a bank and a true investor is looking at a portfolio of stuff across the country. And if you're bogged down in the individual details, that's okay. But I want you to start thinking bigger. I want you to start thinking of the country as your business. And these are just a few images of some of the portfolios that we have bought with other people's money to buy, to modify, to work to rehab the borrowers, or take the property back if the borrowers will work with us. And I think bigger. And I want you all to think bigger. You are all capable of doing bigger and better things. Some of you guys are like, oh my God, Scott, I haven't even closed on my first deal. What the heck am I going to do? Trust me, you are capable of doing amazing things if you put your mind to it, if you're willing to work it. And there's never been a better time and more opportunity than what we're seeing literally right now, ladies and gentlemen, and what the next 6, 12, 24, 36 months holds in regard for what we're doing. Okay, so let's talk a little about some basics of when it comes to note investing. If you don't believe it, you're already in the note business. You're already in the note game. If you're paying on a mortgage, credit cards, car loans, student loan debt, you own your cousin Bubba down the street $100, you're in the note business. You're just on the wrong side of the payment stream. You want payments coming in, not going out. Okay. There's still literally over 4 million homes underwater today after the Great Recession. And that number is actually ticking up as more and more people fall behind, but there's still over 4 million homes underwater today. The majority of those homes, 90% of them are below $200,000 in value, $150,000 in value or less. Okay. And you're seeing homes underwater in high-end areas as well. But for the most part, they're that first-time home buyer. Unfortunately, if you look back at what happened back in the Great Recession, 2008, 9, and 10, 85% of those loan modifications failed from the banks, over 3 million plus that failed. Now, it's still too early to tell, but I will tell you that when you start seeing Black Knight, which is a big company that's sharing the foreclosure data, and you start seeing that people have done a forbearance agreement or a loan modification, have come out of that, but then gone back into it, that's not a good sign of loan modifications or repayment plans succeeding, because the banks aren't really adjusting things. They're still allowing people to stay in their houses right now, but they're not forgiving balances. They're not reducing. They really may not have the ability to reduce the interest rates, but they're not forgiving payments or things like that. People are still struggling to get by. And depending on what you're buying out there, on stuff that makes sense for us, you could be buying anywhere from 25 to 75% of value, depending on the market. So this is a non-performing stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there, government-backed stuff, that you'll be paying a little bit higher than that, but we're not chasing that. From the deals that we buy, we're buying somewhere between 25 and 75%, depending on the market, depending on the foreclosure time frame and the values and what's owed. Here's the thing. As of June 31st, a few months ago, 11 million Americans were facing foreclosure or eviction. Now that number is about the same. 11 million Americans facing foreclosure or eviction come June 31st. That number has changed as each state has adjusted what they're doing. Yes, you have to realize something too, though. You as an investor, yes, banks will sell you notes if you know what to say, who to talk to, and what to do. There's a lot of opportunity out there, ladies and gentlemen. You just got to know where to look, and you got to put some systems in place and follow through. And I'll tell you right now, the fourth quarter, there's never been a better time, because now the banks have gone through the foreclosure moratoriums and that stuff. They're starting that foreclosure process. We're seeing an increase in notice of defaults and foreclosures across the country. Now's the time to tie that bib to you, because it's going to be an all-you-can-eat note buffet here, residential and commercial notes over the next 6 to 12 months. I'll give you guys some numbers. There's roughly about 2.5 million mortgages that are at least 30 days late. There's 1.8 million mortgages that are still 90 days delinquent rate. Our default rate's still in the 4.6 range out there. FHA loans are in a serious default rate. Future, FHA homes that are insured, over 14% of those. That's your first-time home buyers have default rates of 14%. Some of the states that are leading in large default rates, the Gulf Coast, Mississippi, West Virginia, Alabama, Indiana, New Mexico, lead the nation. And when you see companies shut down, especially like what GM has done with the chip shortage, shutting down their processing, their manufacturing plants, you've seen delays in everything coming in through the ports. That's leading to a lot of defaults as people aren't working. And then you add in disasters like fires in California or hurricanes or flooding, there's a lot of people hurting out there. Florida, Texas, Louisiana, they lead the nation with the amount of new foreclosures that are taking place out there. And something to keep in mind when you start thinking about where we are today, where we were before COVID. Okay, here's the thing. 1 in 9 borrowers were 30 days late prior to COVID. That's 11% of all borrowers were at least a month late. So California, 1 in 3 borrowers were at least 90 days late prior to COVID. Now, people always say, oh, it's just a great market. There's so much stuff flying off the shelves. Yeah. And it's been great that you've seen some appreciation take place. People can sell their homes. But we're already starting to see the market turn in areas. You're already starting to see the market turn dramatically in that 400, the 500, the $1 million homes. Those days on market are dragging. That's going to lead to a lot of defaults, a lot of foreclosures, and a lot of opportunity if you know where to look and know how to approach those deals. Now, if you're waiting around for REOs and foreclosures to hit the market, you're going to be waiting another 6 months. You know who gets first access to those type of defaults and foreclosures? Note investors. So one of the major things that I love about note investing is that I'm going to see deals 6 to 12 months ahead of your foreclosure, your people looking for an REO, and we're going to see it cleaning up. And that's why you're not going to see a lot of REOs. A lot of this debt is going to be sold off to investors like me, other funds. Now, that doesn't mean you can't grab your place at the table. There's plenty of crumbs to go around, and these crumbs are quite profitable. But let's talk about this. This is a great image to give you a bit of an idea. Now, it's about a couple months old, but it's still a bit of an idea that they're expecting 17 million Americans are not current on their rent or their mortgage payments, and nearly 33% of them face foreclosure or eviction in the next 2 months. And if he starts breaking it down on a state-by-state basis, let's pull that up here. Texas, California, Florida, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Georgia, Illinois, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Louisiana, South Carolina, all states there that are going to see over 100,000 people lose their homes. Texas is the biggest surprise. Okay, California, it may drag out a little bit because of everything going on in California, but Texas, this is the number that shocked me. 700,000 people here in the Lone Star State, because I call Austin, Texas home, are facing foreclosure and eviction. That's opportunity to really do a lot of good and help people, as you heard me say, rehab the borrower. Or also what we like to say, we like to turn problem properties into profitable solutions by keeping people in their houses and working to leave everybody whole if we can. But what you have to realize, that's 5.7 million people who are facing issues that need help. And if you can be a problem solver, you can make a ton of money in a down or an up market. Now, I'm not going to get into what's going to happen with gold or stocks or Bitcoin or anything like that. We're already starting to see defaults in this. I focus on the real estate. I focus on that. I don't get any of those other things. Okay. So this is a cartoon taken from 2008. It's beginning to look a whole more lot like this on Wall Street. Foreclosures, evictions, defaults. A lot of banks, a lot of lenders, a lot of landlords struggling to get by as that wave of debt is hitting them, wave of opportunities for those that are in the note business out there. So how do we find these deals? I've gone through a little basics, but how do we find these deals? Well, we find, in a variety of different ways. Now, depending on what you're looking for, like I've bought debt on single and multifamily homes, apartment complexes, self-storage, medical office, long-term care, mobile home parks, motels, hotels, automobiles. I've done deals from $7 to $7 million. And like somebody asked me, oh, you buy auto loans? Yeah, I bought the note on this truck from a credit union in San Antonio. I repoed the truck. I paid $3,500 for the note. The borrowed $1,200 or $12,000. Repoed it after he wouldn't deal with me. Got it cleaned up. I drove this truck for over 3 years across the country, and then I traded it in on my new truck and got $3,500 trade-in value on that deal. That's pretty exciting, but I don't focus on that. I focus on, most of the time, residential and commercial notes. And where do you find these deals? Well, you find them in a variety of spots. Okay, you can go direct to banks. Now, you're not going to buy from Bank of America, Chase, Citi, Wells Fargo, any of those top 5 or 6 banks, but you will buy from a lot of the other banks, the other lending institutions. There are hedge funds or real estate investment trusts that have invested in distressed debt, that they like to get stuff reperforming, or they like to buy bankruptcy loans that doesn't fall in that category. They're willing to sell it off. Servicing companies are a great source to find deals, because servicing companies are the people or the institutions out there that are handling the day in, day out servicing, the calling the borrowers, collecting payments, starting the foreclosure process, trying to do that loss mitigation. But they represent hundreds, if not thousands, of investors like you and me, or the companies that have deals. And a lot of investors out there want just performing loans. They may not want non-performing. So it's a great opportunity by signing some great deals. There are auction websites like DebtX, FFN, other websites like Watermark Exchange or auction.com, 10X that have stuff. You can go direct to mortgage bankers, people that originate loans that may have stuff on their warehouse lines, or maybe a portfolio lender. Mortgage bankers are a great place to find some off-market stuff. Private sellers like you and me. You jump on the county records and often find private sellers, people that have bought a note, because you can check what's transferred via an assignment of mortgage is what's filed with the county record. So you can find private sellers online. So our favorite spot, though, to use to find potential deals is LinkedIn. Now, many of you probably have a LinkedIn profile. Hopefully you do, and you use it on a regular basis. But you could go to LinkedIn right now and type in a couple terms to see the amount of individuals out there that are in the secondary marketing or the special assets department of banks. If you type in special asset manager or special assets department, you'll find over 273,000 connections of people out there. That's a great source for us to reach out to. Special asset managers. Hey, what do you have in your books that you're looking to get rid of? You can look for secondary marketing managers. This is going to be more for your bigger, larger bank institutions. Go by this. These are people that are looking at the bank's portfolio and realizing, hey, we need to move some stuff off to the secondary market to get rid of these bad debt to bring in cash to offset our books. Okay, over 1 million plus, like 1,025,000 or something like that connections on LinkedIn. Start getting down to some of the smaller regional banks. You can look at chief credit risk officers or chief credit officers. You'll see a lot of these online, but there's about 124,000 connections on LinkedIn that you can make and people on that. And then you can also look for like big insurance companies, big REITs. They have something called whole loan sales or whole loan sales department, whole loan traders. And there's over 39,000 people on LinkedIn that have those profile names. Now, What do you do? Well, you reach out to them. Hey, what do you have in your books? I'm looking to buy non-performing notes. What do you have on your books? You have to be specific. You don't want to go and say, I'm looking for notes and REOs or property. They won't talk to you, or they'll forward you just to the REO department and you'll go into a voicemail box, never be heard from again. Okay. Got to be specific. I'm looking for non-performing notes on either residential or commercial property. Who's the individual at your bank that handles that? Okay. Now, when you talk about banks, we've bought from a variety of banks. This is just a drop in the bucket of some of the banks that we have dealt with over the past 14 years. I mean, it's just a drop of a Bank of Popular, Regions Bank, Capital One, Compass, Wells Fargo, Union Bank. Now, I did say Wells Fargo, don't call them for a residential note, but they will sell their commercial stuff. Okay. US Bank, we've looked at, BB&T, Streamline Funding. We've bought from traditional lenders and non-traditional lenders and a variety of different things. I need to probably update, I can spend a week going through and updating all the different banks we've bought from on a one-off basis or a bulk basis. Lots of opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we've bought from Capital on the commercial side. What's in your wallet? Hey, it's a note on a apartment complex. Okay. But you got to realize what's happening is the banks don't want to necessarily get rid of their good stuff. They like to get rid of what they consider junk. And what does junk look like? Well, junk could be the 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo in Miami. It could be 2 condos in a tower, a David Williams hotel down in Coral Gables. It could be a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house in South Carolina. It could be a variety of things, ladies and gentlemen. What you have to realize, notes start to look really bad the longer somebody goes behind. So if we go back here, this Coral Gables condo or single unit in this condo complex, the bar hadn't paid in 698 days when we came across it. The bank sold this note to us at 55% of value. It rents for $1,500 a month, actually more than that now, but it was roughly about a 25% cash and cash return. And we were foreclosed on this asset and held it for cash flow for a period of time. Same thing with these. We bought 2 deals in this David Williams hotel for 18 grand each, but it took a year for us to foreclose. In that time, though, the market value appreciated back up from them being worth 50 to 125 and 150,000. So it made sense for us to go through the foreclosure process. Borrowers didn't want to work with us, but we cashed out of the deal at the foreclosure auction. And this deal here in South Carolina, the borrower was like many people. They were actually, this was an investment property. The South Carolina house, the owner of it lived in North Carolina. He lived about an hour away, and it was his first real estate deal. He bought this property, got financing, and fell flat in his face. He had made a payment in 2 years. When we called him, the value of the property dropped from 110 to about 80,000. He hadn't paid, like I said, in quite some time. We bought the note for 24. We were able to work out a deed in lieu of the bar, cash for keys. Actually, we gave him $1,000 to walk away from the deal. And when I called him up on the phone, was negotiating, his wife was not in a good mood. She's like, "Oh, that real estate investment deal, good stuff for you." And when I brought up the fact that I was willing to let him walk, he's like, "Oh, no, whatever." She was like, "Just get off the phone. You're a crook. Whatever, that's not going to happen." And I was like, listen, go meet with my attorney. There'll be a check there for you. Just sign the documents. You can walk away from this house. You can take away this, this dead weight, because I was willing to modify the loan, let him keep the house. He didn't want to keep it. He wanted to walk away and start fresh start. Sometimes you got to do that. There's a lot of people out there that are looking for fresh starts right now. And so we were able to do that, gave him $1,000, and he actually gave it to his wife as a shut up check. And it was a good deal for us. We ended up, like I said, we were into it cheap. We ended up turning around, did a little bit of work into it. The guy that hadn't finished, and we sold it. And I think we sold it for like $70,000 and made a nice payday to us. Okay. Here's a deal that we're currently working on right now. This is kind of considered junk because this is a deal down in Cutler Bay, actually working on it with Catherine that we're working on. It's junk because the fund that owned this and another one, they had to close the fund down. They had 5 years in their fund, and the fund, this was one of the last 2 assets that they had to move. So they were willing to sell us this note at a sizable discount. It's $1 million. We borrowed over $1 million. All right. A house is worth somewhere around 800 to 900,000. We picked this up for roughly 50 cents on the dollar of it, and we'll foreclose here in a few months. And it's going to be a nice payday. But the fund needed to cash out. They were ready to rock and roll, and they had to close it and move on. And how do you find those deals? It's called networking. It's called jumping on LinkedIn. It's called dropping an email blast out on a regular basis to stay on top of what's going on in the market. So you'll find all sorts of amazing junk out there that may be junk to the bank, but as they say, another man's junk is another man's treasure. Okay. Now, how do we fund these deals? It's with capital, guys. You're not going to go to the bank to get a loan on a loan most of the time. Okay. It's rare to find hard money lenders who will understand. Occasionally you'll find them, but usually we have had some hard money lenders fund our deals, but they didn't do it through their hard money fund. They did it through their individual funds because they understand the process. Okay. Primarily what you're going to use is other people's money. We're talking IRA accounts for a big chunk. They're self-directed IRAs, they're solo 401ks, they're ESAs, they're Roths, they're HSAs. There's so much private money sitting out there. There's trillions and trillions of dollars in IRAs and 401ks in the sidelines. But self-directed IRAs are a really great way to work with other investors. It's also an easy way to find people that have money in a self-directed IRA or have used a self-directed IRA to fund a purchase. Those individuals are investors. They've funded deals, they've pulled the trigger, and you know what? They've got cash and they're looking for deals. So we work with a lot of IRA companies out there. Now, how do we find these investors? I find investors by going to local RIA clubs and joining meetup groups, just like you're here tonight. It's part of what with us doing the US REI network is why we're sharing those different platforms for you guys to network, but it's also a great way for us to raise capital and get the word out we're doing. Self-directed IRA investors, we network with them, we market to them. It's the only direct mail that we do is going out to IRA investors. I like leveraging county records and being smart. So we'll leverage county records by going to the appraisal district, or the assessor's office or the clerk and looking for people that own a property inside of their self-directed IRA. We'll look at the recorder's office for people that have either lent money out of their IRA. So we'll do the same search for Equity Trust or Quest. We'll do a deed search to see who's lent money out of their IRA. And we'll find hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of investors in around where I'm located or around the deals where you're investing. I mean, literally in just a few minutes, you can find thousands of investors if you just know where to look. Okay. Now, there's plenty of money out there. Good deals find money. Now, the idea, though, is investors are going to want to invest with you if you know how you can show them how to make money. And that's the third part. That's the third F. We talked about how to find. We talked about how we fund these deals. Let's talk about the flip side of things. And there are basically 10 different exit strategies when it comes to note investing. Now, I wish, like I said, we could dictate which strategy we go. That's not always the case. A lot of times the borrowers will dictate which strategy we're going down because of their either activity or lack of activity. Okay. And it would take several hours to go through each individual exit strategy, but we can wholesale the note. If you're a wholesaler, guess what? You can wholesale notes as well. Put something under contract that makes sense, flip it to another investor like yours truly, make a couple points, make a couple thousand and move on. Our biggest goal is always to reinstate the loan. Our servicing company is reaching out to the borrower. Hey, let's get you back on track. And let's get you start making your existing payment, maybe a little bit extra. But when we're buying that note, we are buying it so that we know that if we do get them back on track, we're making a good above average return. You can always modify the loan, modify the terms after a period of time. We often, if the borrowers can't make the payments, we'll ask if they have somebody come in and take over the loan, do a loan assumption, help take over a deal subject to the existing financing. We're fine with that. A lot of times we'll get a cash payoff or reduced settlement with the borrower. If they've got a 401k or an IRA, we'll work with them to pay us off and then keep the house. If they can't pay us off, then we'll do a short sale. If they owe more than the property's worth, we'll help them list it and get the property sold via short sale. We won't come after them for anything overage or any deferment, deferred judgments or anything like that. If they won't do that, then we'll try to do a deed in lieu. We give them cash for keys, a deed in lieu of foreclosure. If there are second liens on the property, other substantial liens, we'll do a consent to judgment and then do it basically a friendly foreclosure for them. If we get the note reperforming on the front end after 12 or 13 months or 6 months, and even in a lot of cases, we can resell that note as a performing note. Okay. If they won't work with us, they won't work to have somebody else come in payments, then we go the route of foreclosure. It happens quite a bit. We'll foreclose probably about 30% of the time on our due diligence. Most people, when you're starting off, you're probably going to see somewhere between 30 and 50% foreclosures besides the modification. And then here's another thing. If you've got a deal, you bought a note right, but you don't want to go through the foreclosure process, the borrower's not working with it, you can always just sell that note again back to other investors. You've added value to that deal because you know that the borrower is not being friendly and it's going to be the foreclosure. It's not wholesaling. You've actually closed on the deal individually or as a bulk, and you sell that note off to somebody else. So there's a variety of different ways of making money, either very quickly in wholesaling or reselling the note, We always, or it takes a little bit longer and get it reperforming. Foreclosure process varies by state to state, but we always tell people the average note deal is going to be at least 12 months, if not 24 months, especially if you're buying in judicial states. That's okay. Just avoid New York and New Jersey, the two longest foreclosure states. Most of the other states are going to be less than that time frame, unless you've got a bar that drags stuff out. But most of the time, if a bar is going to work with you, they're going to get reperforming in the first 90 days, and then you're cash flowing from that point on. Now, speaking of cash flowing, there are some differences between occupied and vacant assets. I know many people are on here like, well, Scott, I want to use notes. Can I use notes as a way to find other real estate in my backyard? I don't mind vacant assets because I don't mind doing that. Well, what you have to realize, ladies and gentlemen, there's a number that unites all of us as investors. That number is a return on investment, right? How does your money perform for you? What did you get as far as return on your investment? Well, one thing that's often forgotten is a return on time. And I have this conversation with a lot of landlords, a lot of fix and flippers. When they start calculating the amount of time that they spent on a deal and how to get it sold and rehab, their return on investment might be okay, but the return on time downright sucks. And I think we're all worth more than a lot of times what we're getting paid. So what do I like about occupied assets? Well, we've got more options. We've got all those 10 exit strategies if it's occupied. And about half the time or more, we'll get them modified and then start making payments. That way we've got stuff cash flowing without having to put out attorney fees or rehab costs, okay? We like rehabbing the bar, not rehabbing the property, okay? And there's ultimately 3 payment streams most of the time. You get payments on the front end, a little skin in the game, payments monthly, and then a big back end of when you either sell that note off or the bar pays you off, okay? And so it's a beautiful thing with occupied assets. You've got more exit strategies, and obviously it's a bigger bang for the buck and a better ROI and a better ROT, okay? Less work when you get the bar performing. If it's a vacant asset, you've got basically a 50-50 chance of either being a foreclosure, which you're gonna have to do some work to it a lot of times if you don't sell at the auction, or a deed in lieu or cash for keys, which you hope for the deed in lieu. It speeds things up versus having to go through a foreclosure process. But if a property's been sitting vacant for a while, 6 months or later, we usually will avoid it because it's gonna need some work. The copper goblins have showed up. The water heater's gone, so you've got an indoor or an outdoor water feature, or the air conditioner's taken a vacation and gone on a walkabout and disappeared. You're often going to see those kind of things out there. Plus, if it's a vacant asset, the bar is not responsive, moved on. It's often hard to get them to come back to the table to do a mod or deed in lieu, so it's going to be longer to foreclose because it's a vacant asset versus occupied. Okay. Now, talking about good deals, find money. This is one of the big things that people say all the time. Well, Scott, I don't have money. That's okay. Good deals will find money if you know how to market your deals. And that's one of the things that we are experts at is marketing when it comes to that thing. Here's a deal. I always like to kind of play, hey, what would you pay? All right, let's make a deal. I'll give you a big example. Here's a $100,000 fair market condo. It's in Fort Lauderdale, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,050 square foot. It's not on the water. It's a couple blocks from the water. Current rent rate's $1,200 a month. The borrower owes $165,000 on this deal. They haven't paid in 24 months. And if you were to start the foreclosure process, it would take about 12 months to foreclose. And the question I always ask is, what would you pay for it? Well, if you're live, I'd have you guys hollering out numbers. What do I pay? Oh, 30, 40, 50, 60. Most investors would stop and settle at about that 60, 65, 70 mark. It needs no work. That's a nice thing too. I should have told you. It needs zero work. When we talk to the HOA, it's in clean, very cleaned out. There's nobody living it, it's vacant. Borrower lives in California, actually, 29 Palms, California. So the question is, what would you pay? Well, I'll tell you what I paid and tell you what happened. I paid $33,000 for this note. I bought it knowing it could take a year to foreclose. I knew that I was in a good loan to value. I actually bought this from a fund that was looking to move it off their books, closing up their funds as well. I would have paid up to 60 grand for this note, actually, because the fact is that I knew I could foreclose on it for less than 10 and still be in a good profit margin on the back end side. And then also Fort Lauderdale, this condo was appreciating. So if it took me 6 months to foreclose or a year to foreclose, it may be worth 120 at that point, not just 100. Okay. Now, what did I do with it? I flipped it to another investor. I bought it for 33. I flipped it to another investor for 65, and I walked away with $32,000 in profit. Now, that investor, he was actually able to work out a cash for keys or a consent to judgment with a borrower for $2 grand and he was able to foreclose out the HOA, foreclose everything else out, and he sold it for close to 95,000 a few months later. So it was a win-win-win across the board. Now, could I have foreclosed and sold it at the auction? Yeah, I could have. But I'll take $32,000 in 30 days versus waiting 12 months for it. Who wouldn't do that? You know what I mean? Now, our number one goal really is to modify the loans and make money actually holding the note. And here's a great example. Love this story. And these folks are just like my family. Jamie and Lenny Harrington. They're out of Hickory, North Carolina, formerly Taylorsville, North Carolina, which is just north of Charlotte. They live in Hickory, North Carolina now. Just an absolute great couple people. Been real estate investors for a long time now. She's a CPA, also a mortgage broker. We came across this tape of junk. We had a Wall Street fund since they're bottom of the barrel assets. And there was this one condo in Charlotte. And it's literally the condo above that Jeep Cherokee or the Jeep Wrangler right there, this one right here. And we didn't think too much of it. When we saw the address, Jamie was actually nervous. She's like, oh, that's in the hood. I'm not going to buy in the hood. I'm like, let's check. Can you have somebody you can drive by and take photos? And so her brother went by, Preston, and he took that actual photo. He's like, oh, okay, great. So the unpaid balance, what they owed on the unpaid principal balance was $37,500. Their actually payoff was in the mid 40s. We figured the value was 50. Okay, based on our numbers, the fund, the bank valued the deal to be something in like 35. Like, oh, it's upside down. This is lower. And here's the thing: the fund only wanted to focus on $100,000 value properties. That's why they were willing to get rid of this. It didn't meet their investment criteria. It was too small a deal for them. But it was a great deal for Jamie and Lanny. Okay. So I told them they should pay like $4,000 for the note because the bank was motivated to get rid of it. They came back and offered 50 cents on the dollar. I'm like, Jamie, what are you doing? You offered way too much for this deal. She's like, well, I really wanted the deal after my brother went by. It looks pretty decent. I was like, okay. So the bank accepted $17,500. They would have accepted $5,000 for it when I talked to the asset manager after we closed. I just kind of chuckled. But hey, she basically figured the value was at 51. She's in at 33 cents on the dollar, 34, 35% of value. It's still a pretty good deal, below 50% of what was owed. And the great thing, she went out and knocked on the door with Lanny, and the bar was home. And he opened the door, and she explained, "Hey, I'm now your new lender. I bought the debt on this. I'm your bank." And he's like, "Oh, but would you allow me to stay here?" And he opened the door and showed me, "I've done some work to this. I've really kept this deal up. I'm a long haul truck driver. I've been laid off for a little while, but I just got hired back on, and I got a $5,000 sign-on bonus. $5,000. If I give you that bonus, can I stay in the property?" And you know what she did? She's like, let me think about it. Sure. Okay. And the great thing is Jamie had bought this note with her self-directed Roth IRA. Okay. So she immediately got the $5,000 down payment or the bonus put into it. And the borrower started making payments again. A couple $100 a month, started making payments. Well, she got $5,000 to reinstate the loan. 12 months later, the guy showed up at her office and said, "I'm moving to California. I don't have time to sell this. You've been very fair with me. I know I still owe probably about what it's worth. Can I just sign the property over to you? Can I just deed in lieu you the property?" And she said, "Well, hang on." Yes, she can. So she took the property back, didn't have to pay the guy anything. He just signed it over and walked away. So now she got an asset worth 50. She's into it for 17.5. She got $5,000 down plus a year of payments. And now she owned this asset, basically, I won't say free and clear, but she was into it. Her investment was less than $12,000 to it. She turned it around as a rental, which market rent rate was $800 a month. And she kept it as a rental for 4 years. Later sold it a couple years later at $45,000. Now, all that profit was tax-free because it was in her self-directed IRA. And we see a lot of low value, sub $100,000 assets all across the country. You just got to know where to look. Okay, here's a deal in San Antonio, Texas. This is actually a deal that I did. Came across this from a mortgage banker out of Dallas. And he had this plus a couple other deals on his portfolio. The borrower owed over $130,000 on the deal. He was divorced and out of work. He had tore his ACL playing football. He was a Arena Football League player here in Austin, Texas, back in the day. But he hadn't made payments in 12 months. We bought the note for $53,000. So we bought it, for about what is that? That's not quite. It's about 40 cents on the dollar. Know that the days on market were roughly about 90 days. We saw in the loan file that the borrower was willing to sign the property and walk away. So we got a deed in lieu from the borrower. They need about $5K worth of work. And what's that $5K? Paint and carpet. We had to recarpet one of the bedrooms, add some new appliances, and that's roughly all we did. We didn't touch the exterior. That's the picture I took when I walked it. That's my realtor, Haley Catlett, there on the right-hand side. We did deed in lieu in 30 days, literally signed the deed in lieu on the hood of the bar. When at his work, we came out, met him, had a notary there, and we were off and rocking. We sold it 90 days later for 125. Now that's a pretty good deal. All right, into it for 58. We sold it for 125. That's a pretty stinking good deal. Actually, not, we didn't, it's actually, I had those numbers wrong. It's actually, sorry, 58. That's actually not right. So it's not, oh no, actually it is right. 60K. Yeah, sorry. Over 60K in profits that I split with my money investor. Now, how did I find my money investor? I went to meetup groups in the area after I went out and looked at it and a number from the bank. And I posted a picture. I said, hey, here's a picture. Here's a short video of a property that we're buying the note on. We're looking to foreclose on it. I'm looking for an investor to come in and fund the deal, roughly 60 grand. We're looking to be in this deal in and out in roughly 120 days. Somebody want to come in and make an above average return on their money. And we posted that to 3 meetup groups in San Antonio. In less than 12 hours, I had 27 people that responded that either wanted to buy the deal from us or wanted to fund the deal. Okay, that's a lot of private money raised. And this is why I say if you have a good deal, it'll find money. You just got to learn to market. And that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on, especially with our students, is teaching them how to market efficiently to raise capital. I mean, you could target those IRA investors in the counties around San Antonio if you lived there, or around where you're at. Meetup groups, Facebook groups, LinkedIn. There's so many different ways to raise capital these days. Okay, here's another deal. This is a deed in lieu that was in Lehigh Acres, Florida. We paid $40,000 for this this note. When we got the loan file 2 weeks later, okay, got a loan file. We thought we had to foreclose, but no, guess what? Lo and behold, the bank had already gotten a deed in lieu from the borrower and they put in a loan file. They'd never updated their notes. So we didn't have to foreclose. The only thing we did was put in some red mulch around the front. It was in crystal clean condition. We were able to find interior photos where the existing borrower tried to rent it out, but had gotten no hit. So we literally went and filed the deed in lieu at the county, and then we listed it as an REO and sold it for over $90,000 90 days later. Here's another deal in Cincinnati, Ohio. Okay, borrower owed 51. We bought it for 13. She was an elderly lady. She didn't want to do anything with the house. She was going off to a nursing home. She's like, I don't want this house anymore. I don't want to leave it to my kids. I'll just sign the mortgage over to you. And she, like I said, she owed over 51. She signed it over to us. We gave her a couple grand for her time, even though she didn't want it, but we still gave it to her, and we were able to sell the property for $45,000 30 days later. Guys, there's so many ways and different opportunities to work with people. Okay, here's a deal in Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama. The borrower owed $52,000. We paid $25,000 for it. We're working out with the borrower, reaching out to them. They didn't want to loan money, so we're going to start the foreclosure process. Well, lo and behold, like, oh, I've got a full 401k. Somehow money showed up. So they paid us off in full in roughly 4 months from the time that we bought the deal. So there's a lot of great ways to work with people. We always give them options to try to stay in the houses, but a lot of people just want to walk. They want that free pass, that fresh start, that, you know, they're going through the divorce, that, you know, Big Dean don't mean Dallas. There's a lot of people that just would rather have a new start in life, and we're glad to help them with that. Sometimes you'll have the banks call you. We've had this happen before many a time where a bank or a funder will call me, hey, we've got a deal and your email popped up or your profile popped up, or I heard about you from my peers. You know, this is a small apartment complex, nothing big, roughly about 8 units in West Palm Beach, Florida. Was worth $240 when we originally came across it. The bank reached out to me. I didn't want, I said, well, what do you want for it? They go $240. I'm not going to pay $240 for a $240 complex. The borrower owed over $490,000 on this, plus another $60,000 on a private second. All right. We negotiated back and forth over 90 days with the bank. Finally settled on $175 because we bought it in the fourth quarter. We bought it. We agreed on a price December 1st for the $175. We funded December 23rd. Okay. If you can close before the end of the year, often motivates the banks to sell stuff off. That's why we're so excited about the fourth quarter. So we bought this for $175. The borrower filed bankruptcy. We were able to work with the bankruptcy courts to take the property over receivership in roughly about 90 days, started collecting rent, got it fully rented up because there's a couple of units that were vacant, and finished a foreclosure in August of that year and sold at the auction for $310,000. So we netted $135,000 in profit, plus 8 months of rents that we were able to keep. And it was a win-win for us. It was a win for my investor who funded the 175. It was a win for me. All that I did for the most part was work with the attorneys, and I actually drove by the asset once or twice when I was down in South Florida to take a look at it. You'll see deals like this. You just have to learn to market. Instead of you marketing with postcards or little yellow letters or door knocking or things like that, and targeting the same deals that hundreds, if not thousands, of other investors looking at, go a little further upstream. Go direct to the source, direct to the bank. You'd be surprised how many sweet deals you find there without the cost and the crazy overhead of direct mail marketing. And that's one of the big things, guys. We create a lot of win-wins out there. We create wins for the property owner by being able to offer the borrowers a deed in lieu if they want to walk away, a modification. We're not going to come after for any deficiency judgments if they work with us. We're not going to report any new late pays on their credit. They start paying on time with us. Guess what? We will report that to credit, to the credit bureaus to start boosting their credit reports. We're not going to go after, if we have to foreclose, okay, that'll show up on their credit, but they work with us. They can avoid a foreclosure, get cash for keys. No promissory notes like a lot of banks have done in the past. Oh, you owe us this, even though we sold it for you, got to pay 50 grand over a promissory note. We're not going to do that. Okay. Unfortunately, America, the borrowers out there, the 4 million plus people that are in default and increasing on a daily basis, they have their heads stuck in the sand. They're not paying attention. They're not reaching out. They're just trying to play blind and hope that Biden bails them out. Okay. That's not the case. We know things are going to get worse. You need somebody to kick them in the ass. Say, hey, we're here to help. Okay. Now, how do we create win-wins for the banks? So we're like, well, screw the banks. They're the ones that got us all in this mess. Well, we get rid of the bad debt that's killing their books. They're able to settle for a fraction of what they owe and then move on and take that fraction or whatever, 50 cents or whatever it might be, and go out and arbitrage, go out and speed up the velocity of their capital to go start making points. Because for every $100,000 loan that's in default, that literally costs them about $1 million in fees they could be collected. We're able to settle in a fraction of time. They get off their debt, off their bad debt off their books in just a matter of a couple of weeks versus taking a year. Banks do hate REOs, ladies and gentlemen. They do not want to own REOs. And what is an REO? It's a real estate owned. That's what happens to a property when a bank forecloses and they don't sell the auction. They have to take it back. Now they've got to fix it up. It's going to cost a bank roughly 3 to 4 times more than what it would cost you and me to fix the property up and go from there. So they don't like non-performing assets. If a bank has had to foreclose and take it back, they're going to list it for full value to try to get as much as they can out of it. Many times banks have had a pretend and extend mentality on credit. On commercial properties. We've seen assets where they made a loan and they extended the bar to make a payment for the first year, the second year, or the third year. And every year they extended it. So if you like commercial assets, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? You can find them out there at big discounts. Now, banks, unfortunately, bankers are not the smartest people in the world. They may think they are, but what have we seen? Well, why are we in this mess again? Well, it's because the bankers have started doing the same products, the subprime mortgages, the credit default swaps. Those things have reared their ugly heads again with just a new name. And unfortunately, those bankers that were around 12, 13, 14 years ago, they've all retired. So you've got the new bankers who've got a serious problem. They've got something lodged up their butt. They got their head up there. Their problem is obvious. They're all busy about being greedy. They're all busy about trying to make as much for the banks and making some stupid mistakes out there. And we're going to see more of that in the next few months here. Right, but it means an opportunity for you to step in and solve that issue, ladies and gentlemen, to really come in and ride on that white horse and not only help borrowers, but also help the banks get stuff off the books. Okay. Now, and most importantly, how do we create win-wins for us as investors? Well, I don't know about you guys, but when I first started as a real estate investor, I thought I was on a hamster wheel, just going in place, doing all this work, trying to figure things out, but not get any further along, spending money monthly on direct mail and postcards and going to all these conferences and just trying to get started. And I felt I was just lost. Well, with notes, I have found it's a great way to make a lot of money because there's very little competition. Yes, notes has more people become note investors in the last 10 years. Yes, they have, but we are still such a very small niche when compared to your fix and flippers, your landlords, your wholesalers, everybody else out there. We find awesome deals. We don't do skinny deals. If you're trying to squeeze a deal out of notes or a skinny note deal, I'm going to tell you, you're probably not marketing enough and you need to move on. Don't do that. I've talked people out of bad deals all day long before. Like, no, don't do that. That doesn't make any sense. Go back and counter. Go back and fade your bid, or have you marketed more for more deals. Okay. We have very little overhead. Yes, when you're buying a note, you're going to have some servicing costs. You're going to have some foreclosure costs like that. But on the front end side of marketing, if you got a LinkedIn profile, and no, you don't need to have the premiere. If you got a cell phone and internet, you can start reaching out to find deals. And if you're buying deals cheap enough, or you'll have plenty of room there to raise capital to have the investors that fund your deals fund your overhead. And that's one of the things we always try to do. Hey, make sure you're buying at a point where you can squeeze an extra 3, 5, or 10 grand in the deal to cover your overhead costs. Maybe put a little bit of money in your hip pocket as well. We're closing residential and commercial deals with the same type of marketing, reaching out to banks, contacting asset managers. Most banks will have a residential and a commercial asset manager. So there's often 2 leads can lead to hundreds of deals throughout the year, once a quarter, once a month, once a week in some cases out there. And like I said, we're doing this all across the country, just not in the 78750 zip code. It's not just in the 009019 zip code. It's not in the 92109 or 92109, whatever, Beverly Hills. We're doing this all across the country by using the same marketing, and we're getting lists of deals that we can cherry pick from and break down and work for. And the banks don't expect you to buy everything. You don't need to have 3 to 5 to 10 million, even $1 million to buy portfolios. Still plenty of banks and lenders out there that have individual deals that they'll sell you all day long. And you can do this literally with none of your own money. You can use other people's money. There's trillions of dollars sitting on the sidelines, burning a hole in people's pockets. You can show them an above average return. If they're making 2, 3, 4% in a certificate of disappointment, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Borrower, an investor, if I could show you double that or triple that for a short period of time of 12 to 24 months, would you be interested? And the answer to that isn't just yes, it's hell yeah. Okay. Now, what we find is that many investors, when they start off, they're excited. Oh, I'm a real estate investor. I took my first workshop. Woo! I'm excited. Well, you come back to them 6 or 12 months later, they're wanting to kill somebody because they're so burnt out. They feel like their mojo is gone. All right. They're like, oh, I'm going to kill somebody because they can't seem to get it done. And oftentimes it's because they hop from one strategy to another strategy to another strategy. They never give one strategy long enough time for those leads to mature or that marketing to work. You got to take some time to make things happen. And that's why I love the note business, because as I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned that before earlier, we often feel like the general manager of a company, putting people in the right position and managing our vendors to take care of things. And what I mean by vendors, guys and gals, we start off here in the middle. We'll show you how we find those upside down deals. We'll show you how to find the realtors to pull values and let you know what the market like. We'll show you the vendors out. The company out there to help you with the collateral, making sure you can foreclose, making sure everything's in the loan file there for you. We'll show you the servicing companies and how to work with the servicers to reach out to the borrowers or to communicate with them and how to tell them what you want to have happen. If you're looking for attorneys that need to foreclose, we'll help you find those as well, because we've got a nationwide network of them all across the country that we work with for years. If you need help with raising capital or IRA investors, we'll show you how to raise the capital. We'll give you the case studies. We'll show you how to tap into them. We'll show you what to say and what not to say. And then we'll also, if you need insurance and other vendors, we've got those available for you to use who are doing this and understand the note business. So that at the point, if you start doing what you're doing now, 6 months, 12 months from now, you're not going to be sitting there trying to kill somebody with an axe. You're going to be smiling and be like, why didn't I do this sooner? Why didn't I do this sooner? It makes so much more sense. And I'll tell you that right now, ladies and gentlemen, it pays to be the bank. And you can become the bank. And it's never been easier than before to start doing this stuff. You just got to be coachable. You've just got to put a little bit of work to market. And you have to, like I said, you got to change from that fix and flip mindset a little bit to being the banker mindset. And I started teaching this. Somebody asked me, well, Scott, why do you teach? Aren't there plenty of deals? Aren't you focused? Yeah, we buy a ton of deals. We work through a lot of deals. But people don't understand notes. You have to explain it a little bit to them. And that's why I started teaching, was to raise capital. And I started originally teaching classes and bringing people together to learn. This picture goes back to 2008 in Davenport, Florida. I brought a group of my students together to buy notes. And that group has expanded to students all across the country. People that are doing amazing things, buying deals for their own portfolio, working with the borrowers to keep them in their houses, really making life-changing income and doing some fun things in some cool places out there. Whether it's hanging out in San Antonio for a couple of days and having good tequila, good Mexican food and looking at assets, or it's going to Hawaii and hanging out as a group and looking at deals together. Or maybe it's just hanging out in Florida and really being like note Jedis to really make America great again, one defaulted borrower at a time. The thing that I'm most proud of is the fact that so many of our students are doing amazing things. and buying a ton of deals for their own portfolio and really going out there, and as I like to say, making America great again. People need help. Okay. But like I said, we're making America great again, one defaulted borrower at a time. And the proof is in the pudding, in the success of our students and how many of our students have gone out and done amazing things. There's plenty of deals to go around. Ladies and gentlemen, I was excited to be the 2014 Note Educator of the Year, but I'm more excited when I get a group of students together, talking to them on the phone and find out from talking with them how many deals that they close and finding out that they've closed thousands of deals outside of me. That's a good day. That's a good day. And one of the things I'm blessed is to have been a person that basically has taught just about anybody that's investing in the non-performing note space in this market the last 10 years. They've been a student of mine. And that's where the proof in the pudding is. If you really want to learn the note business, you're in the right spot in the right place. We're going to give you the tools, the resources, and the support to really help you take your business to a whole other level. So what's the catch? Well, investors don't know what they don't know. They need somebody, like I said, somebody to reach out to and talk to. Reach out and touch someone. And especially when they're struggling. Investors struggle with three things in finding deals. How do I do this? And we show you how to do that. How do I market to find deals? And how do I market to raise capital? And we show you how to do that. We've helped people raise millions of dollars in private capital, thousands of deals. You just got to have a game plan. And everybody's got a little bit different story. Well, Scott, I work full time. I don't know if I have time to do this. Oh, my English is not so good. Don't worry about it. Oh, I'm working full time. I don't have time. Look, let's sit down and figure out a plan of action for it. Oh, Scott, I don't want to raise capital. I just want to use my own funds to be passive, to add a little bit to my retirement. That's fine. We love to give people a game plan. Everybody's unique in themselves, and we've helped thousands of people identify a game plan and a solution to help them achieve their goals. All right. And how does that come from? Well, it's our workshop. We teach our 3-day virtual note buying workshop, usually 3 to 4 times a year. It's been called our Note Buying for Dummies workshop, but it's really the best bang for the buck with the most complete A to Z nuts and bolts training that's out there. It's actually the #1 investor recommended note training class out there. We have so many students, so many names in the industry that recommend our class when it comes to note buying. I could be here all day recommending the likes of Bill Mancaro with Paper Source, Jack Sternberg from Noteworthy USA, so many other people, Brett Palumbo from Distress Pro. I could go on and on and on of people that recommend our class out there. But what's included in our workshop? Well, it's not June 25th to 27th. I knew I was missing one thing. It's actually this coming weekend. October 8th, 9th, and 10th is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's 3 days of live content. We do 100% of the training via Zoom. Okay, so you can join us from anywhere in the country. Just log on to Zoom at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. It's live. You can ask questions. We actually provide a 200-plus page manual with scripts and forms, what to say, what not to say. And if you can't make it, guess what? You can get the replays. They're included. Not only do the replays come to this class, we also give you the replays to the class back in June for you to learn from as well, because the market's always changed a little bit. Normally, it's $9.97. But we've got a special deal for you tonight. Now, what else are you going to learn? Well, we're going to show you, besides how to find, fund, and flip, we'll share with you how to evaluate deals. We'll talk about what and what not to say to get inside with the banks, how to get them calling you. We'll talk about how to raise private money accurately and effectively for your deals. We'll talk about asset protection and protecting your assets. We'll talk about how to use your own self-directed IRA to buy notes if you want to do that. We'll break down on Sunday all the different types of due diligence you need to do. It's not that difficult, but there's a system to it. We'll talk about how to buy notes nationwide in different hot markets, and some of the hot markets might surprise you out there. We'll talk about how to find financing for your pool deals if you're looking around. If you want to buy in pool, guess what? That's often a better deal because you get a better discount. You get longer for due diligence to raise capital. We'll share with you how to create a nationwide team for you to help you with your due diligence, your processing, your servicing, your collections, all that stuff. We'll talk about how to effectively kill two birds with one stone when you market to not only attract buyers, but also attract sellers with your marketing. And then we'll cover a whole lot more. Like I said, guys and gals, this is the class that helped me become the Note Investor of the Year and the Note Educator of the Year. And I want to help you succeed because there is more than enough deals to go around. And normally the class is $9.97. We're doing a very special price, normally for $6.97. If you go up now and sign up for Note Buying for Dummies, go to notebuyingfordummies.com. It'll give you a very special price for you. Okay. Now, if you use the code Monday, it might just give you a little better price if you take action tonight. If you take action tonight while you're on here with me, it'll actually drop the price to half price. So the $9.97 will be $498.50, I believe. But if you don't sign up tonight, it's going to be $697 for those that are watching the replay. Hey, you got to be here live and play a full out. But if you use the code Monday, you'll actually drop the price better than $697. Drive it to half price. So what are our students doing out there? That's the thing to look at. I could sit here and show you person after person who's closed individual deals, 20 deals, 50 deals, 10 deals. Like I said, their first deal or hundreds of deals. Our students are actually going out there, pulling the trigger and making a big impact, not just for the borrowers, not just for the banks, but for their bottom line. They're literally changing their future of their family and their destiny by using notes as a way to raise capital, to make a big impact in their life. I mean, Bill Grissmeyer started off as a physical therapist in Columbus, and he's bought several performing notes, changed his life. He's helping to pay for his kids' school. Cody Cox has bought over a lot more than 12 deals, but he's done an amazing job of looking at leaving his full-time job working for the VA and doing some other things. Hatham, I love this. Howard Markel came to this country from the Dominican Republic and started buying debt and has made a big impact on his life in doing that. Dan Depp and his wife, Jennifer, started off there basically, they're actually aerospace engineers, rocket scientists, I guess you could say. Dan left his job working in full-time in aerospace to be a full-time note investor and closed on a ton of stuff and doing amazing things out there. So that's the thing. I could go on and on with other names of people in the industry who are closing notes. They learned from me, and we're very proud of that. So what do these properties look like we're buying? Look, some of them are big, some of them are small, some of them are good-looking properties, some of them got to need a little bit of work. But these are the types of properties that we see a lot of times. If you like these cookie cutters, single-family homes, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, there's a ton of stuff out there that you can pick up at a great price, at a great discount, and add a lot of value and really save our neighborhoods that are taking place. Maybe you like high-rise condos. Hey, we bought condos in Miami. We've got one on the 20th floor of this one. Maybe you like the pretty properties. Maybe you need an apartment complex. This is an apartment complex in San Diego we bought the note on. Maybe you're looking for beachfront condos, beachfront property. Hey, this is one of the first notes I ever bought was these 3 units that are right on the beach in San Diego, right where Pacific and Mission Beach meet, right by the volleyball courts. If you've been there. Bought this direct from the Bank of Arizona, one of the first big deals. This was a multi-million-dollar deal for these 3 condos and made a ton of money on that. But guys and gals, if you're watching this, now's the opportunity to take advantage of. Now's the opportunity. If you've been waiting for your ship to come in, your ship is coming in. If you don't do something soon, you're going to miss out on huge opportunities taking place in the next 6 to 12 months for you. And like I said, normally $997, $697. If you use the discount code Monday, it'll actually drop it down to a better price for you. But that's only good through Thursday. So if you're watching the replay, guys, it's $697. If you take the time and opportunity to get signed up tonight, you'll be rocking and rolling and save a big bundle and join us this Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Each day will go from 9 to 5. Saturday will go from 9 to 2, 9 to 3, so that you guys can head off a little bit Sunday. But you get the replays, a 200-plus page manual, and you'll be able to ask questions live of yours truly. And then one other thing that we're going to throw in, if you join us live on the class this weekend, one thing that we'll do is we have a 4-week note coaching program that we're going to throw in as a special bonus, usually $500 extra, but we'll throw that in. So you'll spend the next 4 weeks with me, one night a week, going through specific actions and homework. We'll help coach you through the class and help you implement things here so that by November, by the first week of November, you're rocking and rolling. You're a lean, mean, note buying machine and ready to rock and roll. So I want to open it up for any questions, any comments, any concerns that you guys may have before I let you go this Wednesday night. And once again, thank you so much for coming out and spend some time with us. Like I said, if you go to notebuyingfordummies.com, should take you there. If you use the code Monday, it'll give you an even better deal than $697. Love to have you guys be a part of it. We're expecting to have probably around 40 to 50 people at the class this week, and we got a bunch signed up. That's why we're offering such a great deal on this for you guys last minute here in the next, actually, we get started in roughly about 36 hours. Hard to believe. 37 and a half hours, the class kicks off. And so get started, get signed up, go to notebuyingfordummies.com, use the discount code Monday to get signed up, get the price actually at half price. It's normally $9.97 online, but if you use the code, it'll drop it down to half price for you. So Thank you again so much for being a part of this tonight. If you have any questions for those that are watching live, feel free to ask. If you're catching the replay on this, feel free to type in your questions, and we'll be glad to answer those because we've got somebody that watches our replays all the time for you. Great, guys. Well, then hopefully we'll see you this Friday at 9 a.m. Have a great evening. Be safe, everybody. Best thing you guys do, the only thing you guarantee by not taking action is failure. And I don't want you guys to be a failure. I want you to take action and learn, apply this. It helps, guys. We'll show you different ways, different solutions for you. It pays to be the note investor. It pays to be in the paper business. That's why banks are always the biggest companies out there, because they understand the value of velocity of capital, leverage, and arbitraging. And we'll share this stuff this weekend. But go out, take some action. Hopefully we'll see you this Friday morning at 9 o'clock. Otherwise, be safe, and we'll see you all the time, everybody. Bye.